Hello, everyone, and welcome to this episode of From Page to Stage. I'm your host, Wendy Corner, and this podcast is for you if you are an author. Now, what do I mean by an author? You may have written a solo book, be part of a compilation book. If you are an entrepreneur, you're an author, because doubtless you've got a blog going somewhere, and if you haven't got a blog, you're on social media. What's that if it's not published work? So to start with, I want to blow out that boundary on who an author is. And then I'm also going to get you to think about the stages that you performed on, because by stage, I don't just mean the raised platform with a microphone and spouting forth. Anytime you open your mouth with intention, it's a stage. So let's think about getting you onto more public stages, whether it be a podcast, virtual summits, in-person stuff. So this is for you if you are an author/entrepreneur and you are already on stage or working towards it. Welcome from page to stage. Now, have you clocked who I've got with me? I am super excited to introduce you to Santa. We have the real thing here. I've managed to pull him out of his busy Christmas in July program to have a chat. I would love to be able to give a full introduction to him, but Santa knows himself far better than I do. So I'm going to hand it over to Santa and say, Santa, can you tell us what's brought you to this place in life at the moment? Over to you.
Of course. Is it all right to share with your viewers that I'm actually not the real Santa? Is that okay, or should we cut that?
Yeah. Okay.
But I'm not really Santa. The problem is that the real Father Christmas is even busier than I am. And I just stand in when he can't get there. I'm like his stunt double, if you will. I've got the right belly, right beard, right mindset. And even this time of year, July, when a lot of the Christmas stuff isn't happening up in the North Pole, he's short-handed because, of course, the elves love the cold, and a lot of them have gone down to the South Pole for the summer from the North Pole down to the winter in the South Pole. So you may see them down in Australia because you're much closer to the South Pole than we are up here. How I got here, in terms of being an author, is one of the main things I do for Father Christmas for Santa is when he can't go and visit children at home, I go instead. And you know how it is, you're chatting with children, you wind up telling stories, don't you? And I used to tell stories, and the grown-ups would say, oh, can we get that in a book so we can tell the children when you're not here? And I had to say, no, but I will get that sorted out. I'll talk to Father Christmas and we will sort it out so that you can get the stories in a book. And that's how I came to write the books of the stories that I was telling on the visits.
Beautiful.
Do you see?
How many books have you got then? How many of these stories have you got?
Well, in books for children, I've got 3. I've got 2 of them with me. Shall I show you them?
Oh, yes, please do.
What do you think? Okay. This is one of them. That's quite a nice one. Santa and the Gingerbread Man. Yeah, this is you must know the story of the Gingerbread Man. You know, run as fast as you can. Yeah. Is it well known in Australia?
Oh yeah.
Yeah.
Well, put it this way: I grew up in the UK, so I'm only speaking from personal experience. But I believe it is a tale that is told across the world.
Yeah. Well, of course, the only bad thing about the story of the Gingerbread Man, as far as Father Christmas is concerned, is it's got a bit of a cruel end, unless you're a fox. Poor Gingerbread Man gets eaten. But, oh no, I'm telling you the plot. But in this
Spoiler alert.
Yeah, absolutely. In this book, I rescue the Gingerbread Man and take him home to the North Pole with me.
Oh, love it.
I know, it's great, isn't it? Because he doesn't get eaten. Pity for the fox, he doesn't get his dinner. But the Gingerbread Man comes back to the North Pole and he befriends the elves. Oh, it's hard to get the light on it. Can you see it? Yes,
Yeah.
there he is in the corner.
Oh, cool. Love it. Love it.
That's quite a nice one. This is one I made this one up. Did Sandra and the lighthouse.
Oh.
And we have a lighthouse here. I don't know if you can see
Yep.
it properly. It's hard to see because its light's not working. And that's the basic problem that we have to solve. The light's broken on the lighthouse. We even struggle to find it. Fortunately, someone's nose helps us. Shall I tell you who?
Oh, do.
Dasher.
Dasher.
Dasher's nose finds it because Dasher's got a brilliant sense of smell. And he can smell the oatmeal and the blueberry juice. No, cranberry juice. It was cranberry juice that the lighthouse keeper's having for breakfast, because even Rudolph's nose couldn't shine brightly enough to see the lighthouse. Everyone assumes it's going to be Rudolph. It wasn't. But my very favourite, I haven't got a copy to hand.
Oh,
My
tell us about
very
it.
favourite one is Attle's Wonderful Christmas. And I just don't have any left at the moment. I've got to order some. I'll talk to the
Well,
elves.
audience, you can get hold of these books. They're available on Amazon across the world, and we will make sure that in the show notes that's going to come in underneath the video for this, we will have all those links for you to go and check out the work that Santa Mike has done. Oh, so I'm going to ask you then, so that's what prompted you to start writing, is it that when you were doing visits to children, you were saying you were doing the home visits? Tell us more about that, would you?
Yeah, certainly. I used to mainly do grottos. I don't know if you have grottos in Australia, but you do, so that's all right then. Grotto work, but then we had the pandemic, and the grottos had to be closed, and so I started doing way more home visits. I'd always done the occasional home visit, but I was doing doorstep visits because we weren't allowed to go in.
Yes. And
then they made it more restricted, and we started doing Zoom visits because I wasn't allowed to even go to the doorstep.
Mm-hmm.
And what I found was doing Zoom visits, I was suddenly doing Zoom visits in America and in Canada. I've never done one in Australia.
Oh, we'll have to sort that one out for you.
I think the timing is hard, isn't it? Because North Pole's on the same sort of time as British summertime. So, for instance, up here, it's just gone 11 o'clock at night. And I think for you, it's probably about 7 in the morning.
Well, it's 8 o'clock on the eastern side of Australia, but on the western side, it's 6 o'clock in the morning.
Oh, my goodness.
So, yes, there's some interesting time, particularly if we're talking about little people. And also, of course, the school holidays are different.
Are the children at school at the moment because it's winter?
Well, yes. And we're in Australia, audience who are not out in Australia, just to give you a little bit of a cultural shift here. We have 4 terms a year. They are all 10 weeks. So you can predict exactly when the holidays are going to be, which does make life interesting, particularly around movable feasts like Easter, because sometimes Easter can be in the middle of a term and sometimes it can be conveniently in the holidays. We are now in, where are we? They went back last week. So we're in term 3. Because Christmas holidays here start towards the mid to end of December and go on till February, end of January, beginning of February, and that's our summer holidays.
Oh, right, yeah.
So that's where it's interesting. If you want to catch little people at interesting times, I would suggest then that your Christmas in July time, which is now, it's going to be a bit late for you. However, Eastern states would be easier to get hold of for your Zoom visits.
Yes.
Fun and games is when you're having your Christmas, Australia has 5 time zones on the go. We won't talk about that here, but yes. So home visits, Zoom visits, beautiful, beautiful. Now, you've got also a passion, I hear, for working with children on the autism spectrum. Can you tell us a bit
Yes,
about that?
absolutely, of course. These are the children that struggle perhaps going to a grotto, or in America, going to a mall to see Santa, because there's all the different noises, crowds of people, the different smells, even sort of the various Christmas smells that are put out. And the beauty of a Zoom visit or a real home visit, depending which is possible, is that it's in their space, in their time. They can control it. They can leave the room if they want. And for their grown-ups, they haven't got the whole hassle of getting everyone into the car and finding somewhere to park and worrying that something might go wrong, the child might get upset. Which is why I always say, if you think your child would benefit from having a real Santa visit really in the house, there are lots of agencies. There's in America, there's Gig Salad. I'm sure there's equivalents in Australia. Or if the worst comes to the worst, go into Google and say Santa near me, and you'll find a local Santa. But if you want to get a very good Santa that you've seen online and know is good, I'm available for Zoom visits. I'm sure we can work something out. Is that the sort of thing you meant?
Yes. So was that what prompted your home visits in the first place?
It wasn't originally. I was doing a couple when I was at the grotto, and one of those was for, I was going to say a little boy. He was probably about 12 or 13, who was autistic.
Yeah.
And that made me realize, because I also dealt with autistic children at my grotto, and it made me realize, well, he's so much more relaxed than the children are, where you get the elf coming in beforehand saying, Mum says don't expect anything, he won't look at you, she won't talk to you. Whereas when they're at home and in their own place, I mean, I've had children say, oh, listen, I've been practicing piano, I've learned a carol, watch this. And then the mum takes the camera through to the other room and we watch the child playing the carol.
Love it.
This is my dog. It's so much more relaxed. I think it's much more comfortable for the child.
Yes. Yeah.
Yeah.
And also the fact that it's a one-on-one, as you said, you don't have all the sensory overload going on. Yeah. But also my experience of watching grottos is the teeny tinies, and suddenly, oh, who's this man? We teach children to be aware of strangers. Yes. Hello, Mum and Dad are taking me to see this strange person.
Then there's this big old fat man with a beard, and they say, sit on his lap.
So they've been told, do not go near strangers and certainly don't sit on men's laps. Yeah, I can imagine it would be very confusing. So thank you so much for sharing with us how you've brought that incongruency down for little people, because it is confusing. It really is.
It is, and frightening, and you'll often wind up being given a child who's upset, and the grown-up saying, well, just get a picture like that anyway, it'll be funny. And you think, well, it's not funny for the poor little kid. No. And part of the economic model for the grottos, of course, is that they've got an elf camera to take a picture and sell a picture. And so you've got to get the picture because that's the reason, which is nonsense.
Yes. Oh, anyway, so that's what prompted you to start writing. In terms of your speaking, how much speaking do you do as Santa?
An awful lot within that area of the visiting. And also because I write and I'm a Santa, a few weeks back, it was the UK Santa Convention. They got me to give a talk on storytelling, because I also do storytelling. Yes. And getting your own books published, because some years ago, for the worldwide conservatory of Santas in America, I was giving them a talk on publishing books, and I prepared a roadmap to help an author produce a children's book. So from getting the ideas through all the people that would help you and what you do afterwards. And that was well received. So I used it again for the British conference.
Yeah.
Apart from that, I have done talks on the Santa mantra, which is show appreciation, nurture thoughtful action.
Hang on, slow down. Show appreciation,
nurture thoughtful action. So it makes Santa show appreciation, nurture thoughtful action. And this I've done that to schools because quite often just showing your appreciation of someone makes it easier for them to realize that you do see them as a real person, not just a blooming nuisance sitting at the back of the class. And for businesses, obviously, it's the old thing that Laszlo Bott said when he was at Google, that an employee who's not appreciated doesn't stay. So I quite like talking about that and the benefits of appreciation.
Audience, we are definitely going to have the Santa mantra in the show notes so you can refer back to it, because we need to think about that a little bit more carefully and not just have it run off. A little bit more consideration, I think, because that's lovely, the Santa mantra. So show appreciation, nurture thoughtful action. Love it. Beautiful, beautiful. Thank you, Santa Mike. So I'm going to ask you, what are you working on at the moment? What's percolating?
Well, I've finished writing, but I'm at the beta reader stage, a fourth children's book, because some people I visit have now got all three. And I was trying to think of something that might be appropriate for me to be involved in. And I came up with Huff and Puff, the three little pigs in peril.
Oh,
and it's the story of the three little pigs. You've got, I'll blow your house down. And then the brick house doesn't fall down, but it's so well made, the wolf can't climb up. And in the real story, they build the fire up, and the wolf climbs up and falls down into the hot water and runs away to the river to cool his bottom. He can't even climb up, but they're worried that he will. So the three little pigs are together in the house. I'm telling you the plot again. And they build up the fire, and two of them go to sleep. And the youngest pig, who's an avid reader, he's sitting there with his book. It wasn't probably as exciting as this, because he fell asleep.
Oh.
And the fire went out, and the water got cold, and the eldest pig, Archie, could suddenly hear quiet footsteps up on the roof. And he looks across, and the youngest pig's asleep. Wake up, we've got to get the fire going. He's on the roof, the wolf's on the roof. Oh, and suddenly there's a whoosh and spatish. Oh, someone's fallen down the chimney into the great big pot of cold water. And it's an old man with a white beard and a red suit with a white collar. And as he's crashed, the bag of presents has flown out of his hand across the room. And of course, that's where I come into the story, because it's me down the chimney, because Santa comes down the chimney. And I've given
Audience, wasn't that a wonderful example of a great story being told? That's what you can get when you contact Santa Mike. Thank you so much, Santa Mike, because I'm sitting here going, oh, what's next? you know that start off, once upon a time, that immediately lulls us into that hypnotic, it's coming. And Santa, you and I are of similar vintage. Do you remember the Listen with Mother? Are you sitting comfortably?
I do. I think I'm an awful lot older than you. But yes, I remember that. I remember it on the wireless.
Yes, it was on the wireless. It was on Radio 4, as it was when I was listening to it.
It might well have been home service when I heard it.
But that was, I mean, forgive us, audience, that's a very British thing. But there was a radio program where stories were being told. And the introduction to that was with this very lovely lady who had beautiful diction. Of course, this was the BBC. Are you sitting comfortably? Then we'll begin. And you knew that was the start. That was the equivalent of Once Upon a Time. Again, it was that, oh, here we go. So the art of storytelling, you may not, as an adult, have that Once Upon a Time in there, but there are ways of telling a story that bring people into that subconscious is well and truly open, even if the conscious mind goes, what's this about? That's where you get it on two levels. That is the art of great storytelling, which we have already experienced today. So thank you, Santa Mike, for showing us that. Beautiful. I'm going to ask you, so you're working on book number 4. Do you have a projected date for that?
I need it this Christmas. So it needs to be finished, proofread, the illustrations, cover finalized very shortly. Otherwise, I won't have it at Christmas.
Yes.
And I'll have to go out and buy books that aren't mine to give to people. And it's far better if you have your own book to give them, because then, oh, yes, of course, that's him. Oh,
are you keeping with the same illustrator?
Yes, I really like his style.
Yes, I think it's gorgeous.
It's a chap from Pakistan called Mudassir M. Abid.
Lovely.
And I put a thing up on Fiverr, saying I want illustrations. This is a couple of pages. Send me an illustration so I can see. And I just loved his work.
Beautiful. Well, that's the thing, you see, if you've got a series and you can keep with the same illustrator, it's particularly important for the children's books, because as you mentioned, you have a penchant for working with children on the spectrum. If it's different, we won't be quite so attracted. Yeah. Audience, for those of you who don't already know, my background is in speech pathology, working with adults with autistic spectrum disorder. So I've had them at the other end of the age range. Love it. Thank you very much, Santa Mike. So we are looking to get a book out pretty soon so that it's ready for the Christmas market. Curious, when do you start the Northern Hemisphere Christmas run-up?
Things like adverts being filmed and that is going on at the moment. Getting stuff into monthly magazines has started. Getting things onto gift lists, not lifts, has already started. But as you come into the weekly and the dailies, that's going to start much later.
Sure.
Actual home visits and corporate visits, because I do corporate visits as well. That can be any time through November and December.
Right.
And this year, particularly lovely, the 30th of November falls on a Saturday. So I can go out on Saturday and distribute advent calendars.
Oh, nice. Nice.
Because that's nice, isn't it?
See, again, audience, Mike has given us a wonderful illustration of the need to strategize and have a calendar ahead of time for when things are coming out. So if you are an author and you haven't quite got to publication yet, start getting the message out now. Even if the book has not been published, start getting the message out now. Get yourself onto podcasts like this. Get yourself onto those situations where you're talking about your work. Get the excitement going. We all know what it's like on the run up to Christmas, whether we have little people, whether we remember it ourselves. That excitement, the Advent calendar was part of that, partly because it was a, are we nearly there yet moment. We just don't have a concept of time in the same way that we adults do. If it's Christmas, I mean, we've had some fun with our adult autistic people and actually banning Halloween for one thing, because that was too much of a change because people's appearances were changing. But anyway, sometimes the change is enough to put people off, really get them quite confused. But if you've got that strategy, you've got that drip feeding, this is what's happening, this is coming up, it allows excitement to build. Oh, love it. Thank you very much, Santa. You've shown us that importance of thinking ahead of time and getting your strategy in, even if the product is not ready yet. Here we go. Santa Mike has been telling us about his forthcoming book. And so we're waiting for it. We're excited about it. He'll be getting onto podcasts talking about it. This is the importance of that forethought and the marketing strategy. Lovely. Thank you. So as we're coming to an end, Santa Mike, I'm going to ask you, how do you embody your words when you take them from page to stage, whatever you define stage to be?
Yes, that is particularly easy for me because the words have come, if you like, from stage, from live appearance to become a book. So when I'm working with my books, it's normally with the children and I get them to join in. And a thing I love doing is if I've got an elf with me, obviously here it's the grandmother's baked all the lots and lots of baking. We ask the children what are their favorite cakes and things. And as the gingerbread man runs away, he runs, past different animals that chase him. And what I love if I've got an elf is I'll say, and what noise does a cow make? And the elf will butt in and say, woof, woof, woof. No, 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 that's not a cow, is it? What is it, children? That's right, it's a dog. And then the elf will say, yeah, but this cow's an impressionist. And
That keeps
it's a
the
nice
adults
laugh for the
interested.
grown-ups. That keeps the grown-ups lively, yeah.
Oh, I love it.
So being a storyteller hugely influences the way that I can use the books that have grown out of being a storyteller. I mean, one example is here, we've got Rudolph's nose shining bright. And I just say, a few weeks before, we were quite worried because Rudolph had reindeer flu. Do you know reindeer flu? It's like man flu, but even worse. Can you imagine something worse than man flu? And when he's got reindeer flu, his nose just goes brown like the other guys. That's how we know he's ill. But once it's back like this, red and shining, we know he's well.
Beautiful, beautiful.
And there's always bits that spin off from the books.
Yes, yeah.
And because they arose from the written word to become the book, it's very easy to use them as a written word.
Yeah.
If it was a formal book, I'm barely scratched the surface on writing a book on the Santa mantra. That I think would be much harder to use on stage because it's something I'm sitting and I'm writing rather than I've told it and people have asked for it as a book.
But then, I mean, you're going to be taking that more to your Santa conventions and virtual summits and things, aren't you?
Yes, not perhaps so much as Santa conventions because it's the messages for people, not just people who are in the Santa world, not just Santa, the Christmas and elves. It's corporates, it's schools, it's families, it's businesses. Anyway.
But you'll still bring your Santa magic into that. It may be more of a formal writing thing that you're working on at the moment. Yeah. You didn't mention that when I asked you what you're working on. We've got the 4th children's book, but we're also working on the Santa mantra as a solo book, as a more grown-up book. Yes.
Yes, and that may not happen till next year because it's sort of a lower priority to me than
yeah
half and half done.
I didn't mention either. Get out the number 4.
Yeah, I didn't mention either that last year I was in a best-selling composite book. What do you call it? A community book. And Donna Kozik produced it. You may know Donna, I don't know, but and she got me to write the one for the 25th of December. Good. And so I am officially a best-selling author, even though none of my books have sold in huge volumes at all.
Well, that doesn't matter. You see, the thing is that book would not have been complete without you. So it is your book. Yeah,
and I think that's a quite an easy way for anyone to be able to go to the best-selling author thing. Is joining a composite book. I mean, Ray Brem does them, doesn't he? Donna, lots of
there are lots of them. Yes, I mean I've got 2 out that were compilation books. I'm going to be appearing in a 3rd one later on this year, which, shameless plug, has a foreword from the late Bob Proctor, because that the foreword has been taken from unaired footage from an interview with Bob from the guy who's compiling the book. So that's really exciting. But that's coming out later on this year.
I should have mentioned my forewords, shouldn't I? You saying forewords reminded me. My books, my children's books, have a foreword, or actually I'll call it an introduction, from Michael Rosen, who was the children's Laureate over here. Wonderful, wonderful children's poetry guy.
Beautiful.
And
So obviously,
it's all about the importance of reading with children, and how reading with and to and with children, not just toddlers, but all the way up.
Oh yeah,
is so
we
important.
all like stories, all of us, no matter how old we are.
Yes.
Audience, did you notice how I was going? As I'm listening to Santa Mike, I'm already in that hypnotic trance state of listening to a really good storyteller. And that's where you're talking, you're aiming for those stories. Maybe they're not going to be quite so polished as Santa's version of it, but you sharing your message, embodying your words from page to stage. Think about the storytelling element, because it's the stories that will sell your message, regardless of the facts. Thank you very much, Santa. Is there anything that we've missed off? Anything else you want to share with us?
I don't think so. I think you've done a jolly good job. No wonder you're on my nice list, and I'm hoping that your listeners are too.
Definitely. Okay, so for now, thank you very much, Santa Mike, for sharing with us your page to stage. Bye from us.